One of the things I miss the most in Pokemon games is having an actual rival. I know, you do have a rival in the newer games, but you really have more of a friend who graciously accepts defeat at your hands and tells you how great you are. My 8-year-old self would probably hate me for saying this, but I miss Blue. That little blockhead would go full denial mode when you beat him and would hit you with an insincere "smell you later" as you hightailed it to the nearest Pokemon Center after you lost to him. Oh man, did he deserve a low kick to his Diglets, if you catch my drift. But for as infuriating as Blue was, no one motivated me more to complete the gym challenge than he did. He was always one step ahead of me and seemed to cut through the gym leaders like butter. Which got me thinking, how were two kids who just started their journey to catch 'em all able to beat some of the best Pokemon trainers in the region? It really caused a lot of confusion for me as a kid. But now that I'm older, and arguably wiser, it started to dawn on me. It all came down to each trainer's approach to building a Pokemon team. They may concentrate on a singular Pokemon type, like the gym leaders, or they may fill their team with an assortment of Pokemon types to fit a variety of situations, like that Rapscallion Blue. These two Pokemon trainer approaches can be categorized as being either a specialist, someone who's an expert in one particular thing, or a generalist, someone who's decent at many things. There's probably some debate in the Pokemon world as to which approach is better, and that actually mirrors the real-world debate on the same subject. Is it better to be an expert at one skill, or decent at a lot of skills? This is what I learned playing Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu. Since the initial US launch of Pokemon Red and Blue all the way back in 1996, there have been a ton of changes to the Pokemon series. Some of them have been great, while others have been, let's say, not so great. But there's one thing that's remained constant across all the mainline Pokemon games: earning gym badges by battling Pokemon gym leaders. Gym leaders are some of the most powerful trainers within a given region, and represent the specialists in this video, since each of them focus on a specific Pokemon type, like how Misty specializes in Water-type Pokemon, and Blaine specializes in Fire-type Pokemon. There are some huge advantages to being a specialist, and no one showcases that strength better than the Pewter City gym leader, Brock. You may be asking yourself, how does the first gym leader from the Kanto region surface as one of my favorite specialists? Well, Brock leverages his specialty to the fullest because his gym is right outside the Viridian Forest, which is exclusively populated with bug Pokemon, who, by no coincidence, are weak to Rock-type Pokemon. Even on your best day wandering through the Viridian Forest, you may be lucky enough to catch a Pikachu, which is still a bad matchup for Brock's Rock-type Pokemon. By establishing himself as a rock Pokemon specialist outside of the Viridian Forest, he can crush just about every bug catcher or last that comes his way, making him an absolute powerhouse in Pewter City and someone who leverages their specialist talents to the fullest. What's great about being a specialist, even outside of the world of Pokemon, is you have a deep understanding of a certain topic or skill, and when you're in a situation aligned with your specialty, you become practically irreplaceable. However, just like Brock when I saunter into his gym with a Squirtle, it doesn't take long to see there's some downsides to being a specialist. As awesome as the gym leaders are, there's an Onix-sized disadvantage to their specialist approach. They're kind of a one-trick pony. Because once you know what Pokemon type a gym leader specializes in, it's easy to stack your team against that type and put them in a situation they are not prepared to handle. And thus, a con of being a specialist rears its ugly head. By focusing only on one Pokemon type, the very thing that makes a specialist strong ultimately becomes their greatest weakness. For example, if you know Misty's going to have all water Pokemon, you can stack your team with electric or grass Pokemon to counter them and easily win. I imagine Misty has lost a ton of battles to people rolling up with 6 Pikachus. Think of a specialist knowledge as a vertical line. They have dedicated a lot of time and effort to become an expert in one thing. But this focus on expertise leaves them lacking in a range of other topics and may pigeonhole them in the future based on their very specific skill set. As you saw with Brock, there are absolutely places where specialists thrive, but some other trainers in Kanto feel the downsides of being a specialist outweigh the advantages and build their Pokemon team using a different approach, being a generalist. While the specialist excels in specific situations, the generalist advantage comes from the fact that they're a jack of all trades. They know a little bit about a lot of different skills, which allows them to provide some amount of value in just about any situation that comes their way. Here's how that works from a Pokemon trainer's perspective. Having the drive to catch 'em all opens up a lot of options when developing a Pokemon team. Trainers can have up to 6 Pokemon on a team, and a generalist would fill those slots with an assortment of Pokemon types to try to at least have a chance to counter a wide variety of enemy Pokemon. This approach is how my favorite trainer from Pallet Town, Blue, builds his Pokemon team. Blue has had a relatively standard team across his different appearances in the Pokemon games, but since I'm using footage from the Pokemon Let's Go games, we'll stick with that team. Tauros, Gyarados, Aerodactyl, Alakazam, Executor, and everyone's favorite fire-breathing lizard, Charizard. What you should immediately notice about Blue's team when compared to the gym leaders is the variety of Pokemon types he uses, and that's by design, because Blue can walk into any Pokemon battle and counter just about any Pokemon that a challenger sends his way. Let's say, for example, we were to use my Pokemon team to battle Blue. If I sent out Blastoise, he could counter it with Executor. If I use Pikachu, he has an Aerodactyl. And if I try my Rhydon, he's got a Gyarados. By having a well-rounded team filled with different Pokemon types, Blue should have at least one or more Pokemon with a type advantage in most of his battles. However, it's not always sunny days and misty terrain being a generalist trainer. Let's say you're a generalist trainer who's battling Blaine, the fire gym leader from Cinnabar Island. If Blaine manages to KO the one water Pokemon you brought with you, that's going to put you in a bind. Even more so depending on the other Pokemon you have in your party. Any grass, ice, steel, or bug Pokemon are not going to perform well against his fire types. By stacking your team with a variety of Pokemon types, you may inadvertently put yourself at a disadvantage due to your lack of specific counters. Imagine for a second Misty battling Blaine with her specialist team of water Pokemon. She would absolutely crush him. The reason I bring this up is to show that in some situations where a generalist struggles, a specialist could easily succeed. Think of a generalist knowledge as a horizontal line. It spans across many different areas, but it doesn't go very deep. So, while they may be able to provide some value in many situations, there is a limit to how much. Which brings us back to the question I posed at the beginning of this video. Is it better to be an expert at one skill, the specialist approach, or be decent at a lot of skills, the generalist approach? Well, the answer to that question is a resounding, it depends. Because as you saw in this video, there are places for each of these approaches in the world, depending on the situation. I know, that's probably the anticlimactic answer, but as you can see, there's still time left in this video, so now it's time for a third act plot twist. While one approach may not be better than the other, their true power comes from combining the two approaches into one, which is referred to as developing T-shaped skills. Developing T-shaped skills takes the horizontal breadth of the generalist approach and combines it with the vertical depth of the specialist approach, which creates a T-shape, hence the name. So, let's go, get it, back to the Sultan of Stone himself, Brock, one last time. The Pokemon Let's Go games allow you to have rematch battles with the 8 Kanto gym leaders, and what you'll notice when you go back is that they've taken T-shaped skills into account. For example, Brock has added Kabutops, Omastar, and Aerodactyl to his existing team. Kabutops and Omastar have water as their secondary type, and Aerodactyl's secondary type is flying. So in addition to the rock and ground type Pokemon, Onix and Golem, Brock's team looks like this. See how his team forms a lopsided T? The T is never going to be a perfect T, nor should it be, but this allows Brock to still leverage his specialization as a rock-type gym leader, while simultaneously rounding out his team to work in more situations, like a generalist would. So what does this mean for you as you think about your own approach to skill development? Well, just like with the Pokemon trainers, it comes down to your current approach. If you consider yourself a generalist, which many of you probably are, start thinking about one of your many skills you'd like to dive deeper into. For those of you out there who are specialists, think about developing skills that are closely related to your current specialization. That way, you can take smaller, more manageable steps towards creating your personal T-shape, just like Brock. Developing T-shaped skills takes time and deliberate effort. However, it doesn't necessarily mean you need to immediately abandon being a generalist or specialist. Rather, it comes down to developing the necessary skills to supplement whatever your current approach is. That way, you can become the best, like no one ever was. And that's it. Do you take the generalist or specialist approach when it comes to building your Pokemon team? Also, I hid a bunch of Pokemon move names in this script. See if you can catch them all, and let me know how many you find down in the comments. If you like what you saw today, I'd love for you to subscribe. Smell you later.